So the concept of Lech Lecha was where Abraham was told to leave his home and go out into an uncomfortable place and step out to the world and do good. Now, it seems like a juxtaposition for right now where we're told, like, don't leave your home, stay inside, and at the same time, be good and do good. There's so much pain right now in the world that's happening on the outside and for many even on the inside of the home. But this idea of how do we step out of our comfort zones to do good and be good in the world. So the idea or the frame of this is Lech Lecha. And through the skills that we're about to learn and the conversations that we're going to have, it will empower us more to embrace these Lech Lecha moments, whether it's in our personal lives or in our career. So welcome everyone. And I'm going to introduce our wonderful co-presenters. So I'd like to introduce Melanie Feldman and Anna Schuliger. I hope I said that right. Cool. And so they are the co-founders of Going Places, which is youaregoingplaces.com. And Melanie is the author or co-author of the book Bold. Get hired, get noticed, get hired. So they're going to go over some skills today. And I see that we're at the number 36, which is my magic number. And so we're going to go ahead now and get started. So welcome everyone. And we're going to have, we're going to have a great time. Here we go.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And before we kind of kick into the deck here and get through some content, I'll give you a little lay of the land of what you can expect today, just in the next hour. And we're so grateful to have everyone who's come on and wants to learn. So Anna and I are going to give you a little background on ourselves. Then we're going to hop into some content on networking during COVID, and especially relevant to today. And then we're going to leave some time for Q&A. I think it's important for us to all come together as a community and ask questions and really, get that going. And so I think, during the content, I ask that you guys just keep muted. It's so nice to see your faces, keep your cameras on. And then we'll unmute during the Q&A and we can all start talking then. So without further ado, I'm going to share my screen. All right, and I'm going to kick it to Anna to begin.
Hey everyone, I'm Anna. Thank you, Melanie. I'm Melanie's co-founder and partner in Going Places. Before we begin the session today, we wanted to take a minute to address this critical moment in all of our lives and our shared history with one another, and say, first of all, we absolutely stand with the Black Lives Matter movement and are taking steps to make sure we're practicing our full support, both personally and professionally. For the last couple weeks, we've been discussing ways to make sure we are doing our part in dismantling these systemic issues as we launch Going Places and work to get it off the ground. Honestly, we went back and forth about whether to proceed today, but ultimately we're here with you because we recognize that COVID is still affecting a lot of people and will continue to. We recognize that you came here for a reason, and so no matter how you've been affected, whether it's an internship canceled, a job furloughed, or you've been let go, we hope you'll have more than a few takeaways to help you get through this difficult time. So like Melanie said, I'm going to give you a little bit of background on myself. The reason why I love this networking session is because over the course of my career, I've learned that by leading networking with your interests first, opportunities can come to you. When I graduated from art school, I really wanted to maintain a balance between work and making art. And so I started by seeking out professionals who were successfully doing that same thing. And by doing that, I found opportunities as a freelance artist with Manhattan Sideways and a few others. And then I moved into corporate where I became an art director full-time. And then when I wanted to move back out to pursue art full-time again with my Dreamwall project, I did the same thing. I led my networking with my interests first, and I wouldn't have been able to kind of move in and out of the corporate world without the networking techniques Melanie will show you in this course. So the last point I'd like to make is that no matter whether you're beginning your career or you have, you know, 6 to 10 years under your belt as I did, these techniques work. And we can't wait to show you them. So with that, I will pass to her, and then I will join back up with you during the Q&A session.
Perfect. Thanks, Anna. So as Anna mentioned, you know, we've co-founded Going Places together, and quite the complementary, you know, we definitely complement each other. She has the art background, I'm more the networking business side, and I think, you know, it's really lended well to the content we've created. But just to give you a little background on myself, so I think it's important to show backgrounds because, you know, the reason I'm here with you guys today is my journey has led me into, you know, this content and why I'm here. So taking a step back, I struggled out of college finding a job. And, you know, I had flown home from Pittsburgh to Hawaii, where I'm from, and I spent months applying and just not hearing back. And you get to these really discouraging points where you feel like, okay, I need to change. I need to do something bold to get my resume in front of a person. And that's what I did. I started getting in touch with humans and getting out there. And with that, I started getting interviews. Undertone, my first job, being one of them. I had messaged a CEO's assistant who actually was, you know, a very powerful person at that company. And the next day I had an interview with Undertone. I was actually the first person to ever do a Skype interview from Hawaii, let alone, you know, in general, especially for an entry-level role. I think that's important and shows the power of a referral, right? Because so many people are qualified for an entry-level role. If you're going to move someone from Hawaii all the way to New York City, you better be referred by someone special or, you know, have something really powerful to add. And so with that, I moved to New York City and I was working in advertising at Undertone. And, you know, within a year of that, my passion for wanting to create a resource for people who were in the same position as me or struggled, you know, just, I have this entrepreneurial background. I said, okay, I'm gonna write a book and I'm gonna give people what they need if they are in that same position as me. So I authored Bold, Get Noticed, Get Hired. And it's interview stories from all over the world of how people got their resume and got in front of the right person to eventually land their dream job. And, you know, it was so inspiring, and it really kicked off my journey to wanting to help people with their careers. And that was 8 years ago. And over the 8 years, it's really developed into Going Places. And I think what's important to note about the companies you see here, so Undertone, Twitter, CrossInstall, and Apple, is that I've never actually applied for a job. Everything has been through a referral. So I don't even know what it's like to submit an application at this point because referrals are just so powerful, and the networking and everything. And you're hopefully, you know, through Going Places where we are now, you're going to see some of those learnings of networking during COVID. So just to give you an idea of Going Places and what we're doing, Anna and I spent the last year doing career coaching. So one-on-one sessions with anyone who may have been in college or has 20 years of experience. And what we learned through all of this is it's all the same conversation. We thought, you know, oh my gosh, like someone with 20 years of experience, this is going to be a completely different conversation. Are we qualified? And it is. It was crazy to us, and we're having these same talks over and over. And we said, all right, let's create a resource so we can help people, not just who can afford to work with us, but everyone. And so in our course, we take you from online presence, the very beginning, all the way through salary negotiation. But today we're going to hone in on networking, specifically the tools and channels and the messaging to really, you know, get some learnings in the next for 15 minutes of content on, you know, how you can walk away feeling more empowered on networking. So first of all, I want to just address, you know, what's going on now with COVID and the shelter in place and just with all the companies and chaos right now. It can be very discouraging. And I'm sure there's some of you on this Zoom session that are frustrated, you know, maybe your internship or job has gotten postponed, you've been furloughed, whatever it might be. Today, we're going to focus on the positives and hopefully turn what may be a very frustrating situation into something positive. So to start that, companies are hiring, but it is effing competitive. And you will have to be more creative and out of the box than ever before. And you're gonna have to hustle and it's gonna take work, but that's the only way. And we're gonna send this to you guys as a follow-up, but we've been looking for resources as you're starting to think about, okay, I need a job, where am I gonna apply? There are resources. We found this amazing Airtable spreadsheet in real time with over 6,000 companies showing, with people filling it out from the companies saying whether they're hiring, they're on layoffs, and just to give you a better idea so you can hone in on what's actually the companies that are hiring. And here are a couple that we found, companies that are growing and prospering, while we're kind of in a state of uncertainty, there's been companies that have completely taken off. Zoom being one of them, right? It's like companies that have, taken advantage of, the work from home and the virtual aspect, whatever that may be. So at Going Places, we believe in 4 things. Number 1, applying is nothing and referrals are everything. And you can get an internal referral at a company you want to work for without knowing a single person. And you can create that path to your dream job by networking the right way. Get ready to get rejected through all of this. And this is not just through us, but this is for life, because there are so many closed doors that come our way, whether it's job searching or dating or whatever it might be. But we want you to focus on that one open door. And when rejection happens, try to sit in it in the current moment and think, this is just redirection. I know for myself, I've been in so many situations where my job fell through at the last minute, or, I got rejected. And it's so easy to feel like my world is crashing. And only years later can I look back and say, I'm pretty glad that happened to me. My life wouldn't be where it's at if that didn't happen. And I challenge you to try to have that mindset during that current moment, because it all ends up working out. And if we can focus on that open door, this is my favorite quote. You can ask 100 people out on a date. If you get 99 no's, that means you have a date. And we are focusing on the date. And today we're going to talk about networking, specifically networking during COVID. So by the end of this session, you will know how to reach out to professionals with knowledge, with confidence, and with tact. And the goal of reaching out is to get on a call. Doesn't matter if you're in college or if you have 20 years of experience, your goal is to get them on the phone or on a Zoom call, no matter what. So step 1, how are we going to do this? We need you to find your people. If you hone in and you're like, okay, here's the companies I want to work at, we need to figure out where are those people at those companies. LinkedIn is such a great resource, and it's become this tool of connecting and being able to get in touch with people, but it's not the only tool. And with Going Places, we really believe in a multi-channel approach and understanding, if you have certain people at a company, they might be present on different channels, whether they're active on Twitter or they're active on Facebook in certain groups or Instagram, or just more traditional via email. I mean, we've even done things like I send someone a LinkedIn message and I shoot them a tweet and I say, hey, sent you a message, can't wait to connect. Really coming across on multiple platforms to get their attention. And this research, you could have one company and use multiple channels depending on who these people are. So it's important to do this before you start networking. So the second question, number 2, is how do I get someone to respond, especially if they don't know me, right? So first of all, a not so secret I want to bring up is almost every company out there has an internal referral incentive bonus. So employees are incentivized to talk to you, but you have to go about it the right way. So what does that mean exactly? If you get someone hired, so if I got someone hired at my company, I could get between $500 and $20,000, depending on the company, depending on the bonus. So I'm incentivized to want to hire, to refer someone who I think is worth it, right? Who I think isn't going to tarnish my name, is going to do good work, and then I get money for it. So I'm incentivized by that. every company I've ever worked at, big, small, medium, they all have it. I've actually, in the business world, I haven't seen many companies that don't have this because hiring is difficult. So the balance is people are incentivized to talk to you, but you have to go about it the right way. So we're going to talk about how to do that. 8 rules of reaching out. So number 1, leverage your alumni network, past colleagues, or find common ground. This is so important. These are the people that are going to fight for you. Even if it's a common biking group on Facebook, you have this interest where people are like, yeah, I like this person. We both like the same thing. It's so important, and especially alumni networks. Even if you're years out of college, you still have this passion and this want to support your own alumni network. And so anytime you can leverage that, it's awesome. And do not ask for anything but a little bit of their time. Even a friend. People are so busy that if someone was to message me and be like, hey, Melanie, can we get on a call? I want you to refer me to Apple. No. Why would I do that? I don't know you. But if someone said, hey, Melanie, I saw the blog post you wrote. So cool that you wrote a book. I'd love to get on a call to hear more about maybe your experience at Apple and more about your book. Okay, flattery. I'd like, everyone loves talking about themselves. I'm happy to get on a call and talk about myself. And I'm not just saying that in a selfish way. People love talking about themselves. Remember that. But be genuine, because you want to show that, at the same time that you're flattering someone, you have a genuine reason to want to get on there and you really value their time. So this is an example. We have different types of messages with Going Places in our program, and one is a commonality message. So, hi, Hyla, I saw you graduated from Pitt. I'm currently in my senior year there, and I'm excited to earn my degree. I'm sure you recall the feeling. Your experience at Facebook is so impressive. If you have a few minutes, I'd love to hear more about what you do. Hail to Pitt. Hail to Pitt is such a powerful thing, right? We are from the same people, help me. And that's the best way to get someone to say, okay, sure, let's chat. Quick note, if it's not on the calendar, it's not a call. In your professional world, when you're so busy and you have meetings just getting put on your calendar, it's so important to recognize if someone agrees to a call, get their email and send them an invite ASAP. Okay, so someone agrees to get on a call. Now what? Do your research and be prepared. Understand, okay, where do they work? What kind of company? Learn more about their company. Find, blog articles and just news articles. And if they've done anything in their career, like post an article, wrote a book, know that and do your research on it. And then prepare quality questions about them. Whether it's their job, whether it's their company, you want to show them that I took time and I really care and I'm showing you some really thoughtful questions. And then just shut up and listen. Let them talk. The more they talk, the more you're winning. And don't be nervous. They're only human. I think this is funny because I forgot how nervous I used to get when I was just out of college and I was getting on, calls with people who I'm like, I don't know if I belong on this call. They're like a CEO of a company. And what I'll say is that if you do your research and you put in the time to show them that this is valuable for you, you deserve a seat at that table and you belong there, and we're all humans. So making that connection it's okay to be a little nervous, but just remember that they want you on that call as well. And 4 things to get in the habit of. So read your message 3 times through before you send it, because the worst thing is when you have a grammatical error, it just shows someone that you're being pretty sloppy. Always send that calendar invite, like I said. Thanking them for their time, I think, is so important. Not just thanking them, but going that extra step of adding a little something about what you talked about, or an article that you thought of after the call that, hey, this is so relevant to our conversation. Just to, show them that, hey, this was once again valuable to me, and I want to show you I'm doing extra work and I've thought about it. And then following up. So I think that's also important during the time we're in now, right? Because there's a lot of companies out there, great companies, that might not be hiring today, but in 4 months, they're back in business and they're hiring. And if you connect with someone great at a company and there's just no opportunity today, it doesn't mean that, you know, that could be someone that could really vouch for you in the future. And especially if you have a good conversation, make a note, follow up with that person every month, maybe every 2 months, and follow up with value. You know, hey, I saw this article, it really got me thinking of what we talked about. Or, hey, I have a question for you. Like, you know, whatever it might be, keep that relationship going, because, you know, even if it's someone as just a mentor in your career, I think it's so important. And when following these rules and using flattery, 90% of the time, they're going to ask you, so what can I do for you? Have your ask ready. And your ask doesn't necessarily need to be, I wanted a referral. Sometimes it's, oh, I want an introduction to someone on a different team. Or, you know, maybe it is for a referral. Or just someone who, you know, maybe you wanted just to know more about the company and this is just something you're generally interested in talking to them about. Or maybe you want to keep that relationship going because there's someone that inspires you and you'd love to keep in touch with them every couple months and check in. But whatever it is, have your ask ready because they're going to ask you. And in conclusion, I think, you know, when it comes to reaching out cold and getting that call on the calendar, you first find your people, you communicate using flattery, but being genuine and knowing your ask so you're ready when they ask it. And I want to show you a couple examples of how this actually works, and it works at the highest level. So the Golden State Warriors, go Warriors. We had Justin, who was one of our clients and someone that we've worked with for a long time. He wanted to get a job at the Warriors. So he went straight to the CRO and he said, all right, I'm going to craft this message. I'm going to use flattery and recognition of accomplishments. Let's talk about you. And I'm going to tell you why I'm reaching out. And within 1 hour, he got or one day, he got a response. And it's like the CRO goes, yeah, sure, let's do it. When works for you? Here's my personal email address. Feel free to contact me. And here's another example. So this is my personal example. I mentioned in the beginning when I was telling you about myself that I had a really tough time getting my first job. And throughout that process, one of the companies that I really wanted to work at was ESPN. I was a business major and I played a sport in college. So my younger self thought, this is my dream company. And I probably applied 10 times a day, never heard it for 2 months. I would find every role, I would apply, I'd put so much time in. And I barely even got automated responses back. And so it got to this point where I was like, okay, I'm going to challenge myself here. And if I can get one person to refer me and get me an email, it's got to be a sportscaster. So I found this guy right here, Neil Everett. And I said, okay, Neil's from Hawaii. Neil lived in Hawaii. I'm from Hawaii. Boom, commonality. I'm going to use some flattery. I put 25 emails possible on this email because I had no idea what his email was. And boom, I sent it off. A month went by. At that point, this was kind of the beginning of my, okay, I'm going to change it up. I'm going to do these different techniques. In that time, in that month that went by, I actually had my job at Undertone already. I was a day from moving from Hawaii to New York City, and boom, I have a missed call and voicemail on my phone. And I'm like, huh, that's odd. I listen, it's, hello, Melanie, this is Neil Everett's voice calling you. And I was shocked. I think this was a major turning point for me because I realized it's not about who you are. It's not necessarily about your grades in college. It's not about what you've done all the time. It's about who you know, right? And so Neil Everett gets on a call with me. We get on a call. 30 minutes later, I have an email from ESPN saying, hey, we'd like to interview you tomorrow. And it showed me, it's like, okay, yep, I spent 2 months applying 1,000 times, nothing. I get in touch with the right person and there you go. And this is also an example of keeping a long-term relationship. So Neil was so inspiring to me. I found out he had an incredible story. He ended up being in my book, and we were lifelong friends. He's been wanting to work with us on going places. And just, you know, it's important to keep those people in your life that you feel inspired by and that can be mentors. And that's, yeah, like I said, it's like you really want to keep them and keep following up. Sometimes you know, it takes a while to get this guy's attention, but at the end of the day, you know, it's someone in my life that has really inspired me. Amazing, you know, just ways that, hey, people respond. This works. And, you know, to kind of conclude, it's when you're thinking about your dream job, you have this big goal, but it's important to think about what is your dream job right now? Because it's about, you know, it's about your journey. It's about every step of the way. And all of a sudden you're going to look back and go, wow, what did I just create for myself? I've now, you know, I'm doing all these things. It's not all about just that end goal. It's about how are you crafting your way into something that you really enjoy and, you know, doing good work along the process. And with that, we give you permission to reach out. It doesn't matter if you're sending an email or, you know, you're just trying to get a seat at that table. You are worthy of that. And you can get people's attention and people respond, especially to quality reach outs and quality emails. I think, you know, it's appreciated. No one thinks to do it. You always think, oh, I'm not going to bug the CEO. They're probably so busy they would never respond. That's how everyone thinks. So just go out there and do it and see what happens. And with that, I'm gonna, you know, we're gonna kick it off into some Q&A. I wanted to share, here's our website and our LinkedIn or our Instagram and our Twitter. I think talking about channels, it's a great way to get our attention. We respond quickly on these platforms. And essentially we're just trying to create a community, you know, to help one another and make sure everyone's growing and being fearless while they're, you know, out there networking. So I am going to stop sharing my screen.
And that was amazing, Melanie. Thank you so much. So as Melanie mentioned, what we're going to do is twofold. First, we're going to take like 2 questions. And then since I know it's so important for people to be able to connect with each other, we're going to then do a quick breakout, like a very brief one for people to introduce themselves to 2 other people and then share one takeaway from this. And then we're going to come back and we're going to do more questions. That's the housekeeping. And Melanie, that was awesome. Thank you so much. Like so many people were sending me personal messages during it with like thoughts or ideas. And it's just amazing, especially having such a wide range. And it's funny because most of the people that are on here that are involved with Career Up Now are involved, not unlike you, because of myself or someone else reaching out. So it really does work. So let's open it up for questions. You have the choice, since I really want people's voices to be heard. And if they don't feel comfortable speaking, like you can type the question, but feel free to either type your question or use the little reaction and raise your hand, and then we'll jump into that part. So you can go ahead and type it. And Melanie, you can see the questions coming in.
Yep, I can see if you just make it towards everyone, I can see the chat.
Amazing.
Who's going to be first? And, oh, go ahead, yeah.
Yeah, we also had one question come in before the session during sign up. So if no one has one right off the bat, we could begin with that as well.
So we got a couple questions. I'm gonna get the first one from Stephanie. She said, how do you combat rejection? I think that's so interesting because, rejection is so meaningful to me because when I showed you the companies that I've worked at, some of you guys might say like, oh wow, like she's successful. I don't know, maybe not. But if you would have seen my path and all the things that I've come up against getting to the points that I have, you probably wouldn't even see those companies because it would be all these red dots on the screen just being like rejected, rejected, rejected. And so I think, you know, rejection mostly, if you actually take it head on, it hurts your ego, right? And it's like someone says no to you. If you ask someone out and someone says no, you're getting a hurt to your ego. And I think ultimately, same with jobs, right? But I think what's so important to note with the job space is that most of the time, you don't even know why you're being rejected. And I've only realized that when I started interviewing people for the different roles at these companies. And there's so many times where we're huddling as a team internally and we're like, okay, we have 3 candidates. We could have any of these candidates and they would crush it. But how are we going to choose which one, right? And so we go through, ultimately one person gets chosen and those other 2 people were rejected, but they don't even know why. And they don't even know that they were actually, could have been an amazing candidate. And so through that, I've just realized so much that like, if you get rejected from a job, take a second, and move on. Because, and you know, it's always nice to ask like what, you know, why, if you can get feedback, if people are willing to give it. But once you can say, I'm not going to let this hurt me and I'm going to move on, you're going to gain this confidence and you're going to realize like no one can get in your way. That is the worst thing that can ever happen to you, and no one can get in your way. And like sometimes I have to remind myself of that because, you know, little rejections come here and there all the time, and like you're only as powerful as you're going to allow yourself to be. And so sometimes I just remind myself that over and over again, and I focus on the one open door in front of me every time. And that's what I'll say to rejection. But yeah. And of course, Anna will unmute and add if she wants to at any point. You can tell our relationship. I generally talk over, so. Okay, so we have quite a few questions in here. Wow, okay, so I'll just kind of go in order. So should people ever attach their resume when reaching out or wait? That's such a great question from Georgia. I think don't attach your resume when you're reaching out, because that's already asking for something, right? And it's like, you want, and it's okay to lead a conversation, a cold message saying, hey, this is my situation. Like I'm currently looking for a job and I found you and I think I'm inspired by what you've done. I want to hear more about you. It's okay to give them a sense of like what maybe you might want. But by sending someone a resume, you're basically saying, do this for me. Look at this. And I just think like, make it about them, all about them. And when they ask you for a resume, you can send them a resume. And Bradley, there's quite a few questions. If you want, at any point, just let me know when you want to move into a breakout, but should we go through a couple more?
You know what, let's just, so that we can sort them, because we're having so many questions come in and there might be some repeats. What we're going to do right now is something a lot of fun. We're going to jump in, because part of Career Up Now is building community and connecting with others. I'm going to set up a breakout room where you're going to be in a breakout room with with one or two other people, just to connect and and during that, just kind of introduce yourself and maybe share like one takeaway. And then in the meantime, we'll go through the questions and then we'll have you come back in. And I'm gonna put, there we go, reversing the numbers. There we go. So I'm gonna put 2 to 3 participants in each room. So here we go. And then we'll welcome you guys back in like 4 minutes. Here we go. And then you just have to accept the breakout room. See y'all soon.
So depending on what your ask is, I think understanding that first, right? So if it's an introduction versus getting referred, if you start the conversation opening it up with your current situation, especially in the email, like, hey, my name's Melanie. I was recently affected by COVID and got laid off, and I've been in the midst of my job search and I found you. I think giving a sense of where you're at isn't a bad thing. And then asking for their time to talk about them. If you're in college, it's like, hey, I'm a recent college grad. Like that and enough should say that, hey, I'm open to opportunities. I don't think you have to explicitly say, this is what I want. But if you give a little sense of what your situation is, the person should understand like, hey, like they obviously are probably looking for some kind of opportunity or just want to understand more about the experience at this job. And that could definitely be an option. And I think, it's okay to, if they ask you, how can I help you or whatever it may be, to say, yeah, so this is my current situation. I wanted to get on a call with you to, first of all, you're impressive and I wanted to hear more about you, but also like learn a little bit more about this company and what it's like. So I think there's ways to kind of push it in a little bit without explicitly saying like, I need a job and I'm only getting on a call with you to talk about that. I know that was a little bit confusing. Hopefully that wasn't too much, but you kind of get the sense of what I'm saying. And Anna, I don't know if you want to add anything there.
Yeah, I think another point in the program that we really drive home is like, you want to find a job that's right for you. And also just as equally, you need to be right for the job. And so if you go into the mindset of, I'm learning more information because I need to see if this actually fits me, not from the position of, I really need this no matter what it's like. I think that gives you a little bit of empowerment too, and like confidence going in. Like, I really am just looking to see if this place is going to be right for me and right for my next step, regardless of where I am right now. And it can kind of level the playing field when you're having that conversation.
Exactly. I see another question that I like, or I see a lot of questions that I like, but do you mind if I go into one that from Lawrence, I think, focusing, and this question is kind of about like, who is the right person to connect with? So let's say you have this list of companies, right? And it's like, I have 3 companies that I want to work at. Now my next step is I want to get a referral, right, from the person at the right team. So our thing is like, I'll tell you who the wrong person is to reach out to. Don't reach out to HR. First of all, like, they get way too many emails. It's like, it's chaotic, all that stuff. So that's who you're not going to reach out to. Who do you reach out to? I think the most valuable person, the gold person, is the hiring manager, right? So if you ever can get to that person, great. The higher up you get, the more weight they're probably going to hold on that referral. So I think there's a lot of different values. And so what we always teach is like, okay, our gold star is the hiring manager. You want to spread your wings, because probably of 50 people I send a message to, 2 will respond. But that's winning. If you get 2 people to respond and want to get on a call with you, you're doing an amazing job. And like, you're probably going to end up getting an interview at that company. So, okay, if 2 people get back to you, it doesn't really matter who they are, because you can always navigate with them to get to that next person. So maybe, and this is something really important, let's say you want to get on the marketing team, right? And John from the finance team responds to you. Your goal is to get John to give you an introduction to someone on the marketing team. How do you do that? Your ask is, hey, John, I crafted up an introduction about myself. Would you be willing to forward it off to someone on the marketing team? Like, your ask should not be more than 1 click of a button for them, or else it's never going to be prioritized. They're never going to do it. They don't know you. So how would John ever send an introduction about you? The same thing with getting referred, right? It's like, if someone's like, I want to refer you, make sure you do everything possible for that referral, including sending them a 3rd-person paragraph about yourself, because they're going to have to put that in there. I know that kind of got off a little track of the right person, but I think everyone essentially is the right person, and you can navigate to that, essentially that gold through your ask.
That's amazing advice. Sorry, I have a slow computer, so it's back up and operational again. Another great question for you is, what is your recommendation on LinkedIn for building a brand and yourself?
Yeah, so, and sorry, it's hot and I have the windows closed because I didn't want the noise coming in. So if I start sweating, that's why. So building a brand is so important. Yeah.
You're sweating because my question's so good.
It's such a great question. I'm dripping sweat. So building your presence is I think that's so important. In our Going Places program, online presence is our first chapter, because if you're going to do all this work to reach out to the right people and network, your presence is essentially what is going to be in front of them, like whether it's your LinkedIn or your Facebook or whatever it is. And like, why do all the work if you don't have something you want to show them or reflects your best self? And so it's a lot, right? I think ultimately, like throughout our chapter of online presence, what we talk about is first cleaning up your LinkedIn and, following the prompts to create like an all-star profile, making sure your experience reflects how you're going to lay out your experience should reflect the jobs that you want, right? So if people are in the job that you want, detail out all the different things that they do, then you should probably do that as well. It's kind of one of those things dependent on industry. You should Google yourself and see what comes up. I think there's so many things that are important to do. And we kind of walk through the steps on that in those chapters, but it's like making sure when you Google yourself, everything up there is what you want to see. We talk about creating a presence across the board. So like your Facebook picture, your LinkedIn picture, your Twitter picture, all have a consistent brand, showing where like people see that and they're like, oh yeah, I know that person because I saw them on LinkedIn or I saw them on Twitter. And then we really focus in on cleaning up your baseline resume. So there's a baseline resume that we think before you even start networking, you want to make sure that's cleaned up, and we have kind of a how to do that. But then you're never submitting your baseline resume. Every time someone wants your resume, you are customizing it to that specific job or that company. And I think that's important. But in terms of like your online brand and your presence, we definitely suggest cleaning that up and making sure you go across the board before you even start networking. And I'll let Anna add anything to that as well.
No, I think you covered everything I would mention for that question. Thanks, Mel.
You, this actually may also relate to Anna, but do these tips and tricks, and another question is, do you think these tips and tricks are applicable to the scientific and academic community, of course, as well as the arts community? And do you think that community acts differently in terms of the networking and hiring process?
I think, Anna, you should take that one and maybe give a little piece of kind of the art side and how you navigated that, and then I can add something to it after.
Yeah, I mean, I think what Melanie and I have learned is that, yes, you know, no matter what industry you're in, these techniques can work, you know, with the commonality and shared backgrounds leading your way with networking. The people that you want to get in touch with in your industry, regardless of what it is, are going to respond to the techniques that we're talking about. And in terms of my own personal history, like when I was leaving my full-time position to pursue art full-time, I, you know, two things. I needed a studio in a new city, and the one that was the best one had hundreds and hundreds of people on the waiting list. So I realized that applying online, I probably was never even going to be seen. My work wasn't going to be seen, and it would take me years to get removed from that waiting list. So I just reached out to the studio manager of the floor that I wanted to work on. And I said, hey, you know, I looked up your work. I know you've been in Pittsburgh for a while. This is what I respond to in your work. This is what my work's about. And, you know, the next opening that they had, I got in. It was like a month later. And she said, you know, since you were persistent and since now I know you personally, like, I would love to give you a space. I would love for you to be a part of the community. And then when I wanted to show my work later that year at a festival in the city, it was the same thing. It was hundreds of applications for a spot at one of their main venues during the festival where there's thousands of people. And I just didn't apply, and I reached out to the director and I said, I've looked at the history of your festival. I understand that it's geared around kids. I understand it's geared around families. Here's how my project is a community art project, and here's how people like that could interact with it. I would love to bring value in this way. And she actually gave me a call back. We had a 30-minute conversation, and then I was like in one of the main venues for the festival that year. And so in terms of speaking to the art piece, I think absolutely it does. I know in the fine art world, there are a little more, there are different paths to navigate. I was doing it on the more like commercial side for that instance. But I know Melanie could probably speak to industry she's familiar with as well.
Yeah, so no, and that's such a great example. I think when it comes, and for this specific question, it says scientific and academic, right? So based on our experience of working with so many industries in the last year and a half of like coaching and helping people get where they want to be, maybe not every industry has like an internal referral. Like if you're working for the government, they're not going to give you money for referring someone, or depending on your industry, right? But there's still this aspect of like, if you're getting in touch with someone in an informal way and getting on a conversation with them, no matter what your industry is, to even just understand more about what they're doing, you're developing rapport with people. And in my opinion, that can never hurt. And I've talked to people in a lot of industries where they never thought this was actually a way to get their foot in the door. And they realized that like, even if it's not something, like, even if it's not the process of like, oh, let me refer you, all of a sudden this person knows who you are, and they may be someone that makes a decision or, you know, is a part of that process. And if your name comes up and they're like, oh yeah, I had a conversation with that person, it probably can only help you. So it definitely depends on industries. And I think, you know, I've had people say like, this isn't in my industry. And I'm like, okay, well, like, how can we use networking to make this better for you in your industry? And you know, I'm curious if any of you guys are like, this doesn't apply to me. I'd love to hear from you and maybe brainstorm and just think about that. Or also maybe I'll just say, hey, this just doesn't apply to this industry. So yeah, I think like for the most part, I've had conversations and we've found ways to make networking applicable to every industry.
And what I'll just add before we move on to the next question is that, you know, Melanie's point about just developing a rapport with someone, naturally you're going to be sharing your ideas in a way that you normally wouldn't be able to through a cover letter or a resume. And so sometimes that even can bring your name or at least your application to the top of the pile. And if you have a really good conversation with someone and you're sharing ideas that they really connect with or think can forward their work or whatever it is, they'll ask you to formally submit an application and all of the regular paperwork and then pull your name to the top of the pile. So even if it's to accomplish that, I think it is an additional value or an additional like path that you can pursue.
If you don't mind, I want to add one thing, Jahar here. Look at your, again, if you, for the people, most of us, I'm sure, using LinkedIn, look at your close network. Look at the people that you know. And if the people that you know the people you want to get with, then go to the person you know to make those introductions, because you already know them, so you don't have to do all the extra work of doing the formality. Just connect with the people you know. I can tell you that in my networks, how I help people, and just happened that 12 people were here last night. I live in a country, so we had space and no problems with Corona. We had 12 people here in a circle around the fireplace, around the fire pit, chatting last night for a few hours. And there's people from everywhere. We had scientists, we had doctors, we had engineers, we had people working for tech companies, we have people working in MEMA, it's the Massachusetts Emergency Management, local MEMA. We had everybody. I had like everybody here from everywhere, and they're close friends that if I ask them to connect with you, they will give you the 5 minutes to connect with you. So use your close contacts to get to the person you want to get.
Love that.
That's such great advice. And what I love about this, I know that we're coming up on the hour, is so much about it is like connections, developing relationships, deepening relationships, and being bold and reaching out to people and tactfully being able to shift to what you'd like to accomplish and bringing value into their lives. Melanie, thank you so much for being one of our mentors in Career Up Now and a part of our community. We're going to be sending out the link to this recording for the YouTube channel. Also, be sure to check out and connect with Melanie and with Anna regarding youaregoingplaces.com or Going Places, and any final words that y'all would like to share.
I would just say, like, yeah, thank you so much for having us. It's such a pleasure to be speaking with you guys. And the fact that you guys had so many questions, I think just showed like, this is a topic that people are, you know, very much interested in. And if we didn't get to your question, I'm so sorry. Like, feel free to hit us up on any of our channels and ask it, and we'll give you that time. And yeah, we'll keep you updated when we launch our course in a couple weeks. And yeah, we'd love to, you know, stay involved in your lives.
Thank you so much, everyone.